So we were talking about live services the other day and how the market is oversaturated and new ideas seem to be lacking. A lot of the
Very
live services
oversaturated
that
market
we're
right now.
seeing pushed out just feel kind of uninspired, chasing trends. Just it feels like they're trying to cash in rather than kind of use the genre to create something genuinely innovative.
A lot of games focus on microtransaction, live service, and all these ways to try and get the consumer to stay on the game and keep buying more and more. I really miss the days when you used to just buy a game for 50, 60 bucks, just run it and then just play the game and beat it. But again, right? You can only do that for so long. So if you think about it like this, also No Man's Sky came out a while ago. You paid X amount of dollars for it, and they're doing free updates. They're doing it right. Elden Ring, you had to pay for the update. They're doing it right because that update is basically like a new game, and it's worth it. They have to make the price you're paying worth it. People are getting tired of the microtransactions and all the live service games, and developers are getting very tired. Like everything they make is tired and boring and reused. So I'm curious to what he has to say about Concord, because I think I feel the same way about this game that came out.
And something that pushes the genre to a new level and to new heights. It all just feels iterative instead of innovative. And so that's led to a situation where there's just too many live services out there right now. And the majority of the ones that attempt to kind of get a piece of the pie and tap into this oversaturated market end up shutting down unceremoniously. I talked about how that happened to Exoprimal. I talked about how Multiverses is well on its way towards a mass decline that's going to
see, they get this popularity from having Twitch streamers play their game, and then it generates this big hype and spike in the beginning and everybody's excited, but they can't maintain that following because it's kind of like a false way of trying to show your game off, and if your game is not good, people will stop playing.
See potentially it's shut down, especially for a free-to-play game. These numbers are just not enough. Then we got Skull and Bones, which didn't break 1 million players after February 22nd, 2024.
Game?
I don't know what
the quadruple A game didn't do well. Wow.
Those numbers look like now, but I don't imagine this is a game that's performing particularly well. Arcane Austin had to shut down Redfall, and the studio itself was shut down by Xbox. You've got Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, which is well on its way out, and things are bad enough where they're trying to give this game away for free in the hopes that people come back. But you look at the player numbers, it's just, I mean, low triple digits, nowhere near enough to sustain this live service. You've got Foam Stars, which crashed pretty quickly and lost 95% of its player base in a short amount of time. This game's on its way out for sure. Rocket Arena shut down earlier this season.
It almost feels as these developers are making the game, getting everything they can squeeze out within the first few months from their player base, and then just moving on, and then just not even caring about the game. Think about 343, Halo Infinite, dog shit game, a live service. They can't get anything right, and they can't bring back the player base. And these games at least had a good release. Halo Infinite, no good release.
Here, you've got this shooter from Tencent called Synced, which I'd never even heard about before, but it shut down exactly a year.
Yeah, you don't even hear about half
of
these games.
Forth. You get the idea. And now it seems as though live services are saying, I've got one more in me, in the form of Concord, which is the PlayStation-published live service. For those who don't know, PlayStation's trying to delve deep into...
Do people even play console anymore? It's kind of crazy.
At one point, they had 12 that they were planning to release by 2026. That number has been reduced to 6, but that's still too many. Among them is Concord, which is basically this hero shooter that is essentially Overwatch.
You look exactly like Overwatch.
Guardians of the Galaxy in terms of its aesthetic. And the game doesn't look awful by any means. It plays fine and, it does the thing. But it doesn't do anything to stand out either.
It doesn't look bad, but it looks like 3 other games all in one. And I'll just go play Overwatch if I want to go play, or I'll just go play Destiny. It's not an original idea. They're just trying to kind of taking all these concepts and then putting them all into one and thinking that it'll work and that they'll get people to play the game. If you don't release your game on Steam, Xbox, if you don't release it on everything, you're just not going to see a player base. Look at Fall Guys. Fall Guys removed their game from the Steam marketplace, and now they're losing the Stumble Guys. That's a certified L.
And that's kind of what the general consensus has been. There's one article here from Washington Post that best describes this as this being a game that's a few years too late. Maybe it would have enticed folks if it would have released before some of the other hero shooters became standard. But now Concord is just coming in late to the party, and it's a game that nobody is really particularly interested in. And that's leading to a result that is less than ideal when you look at player numbers right now. So for those who don't know, Concord had a closed beta not too long ago, and you can see
Nobody
right here,
even played the closed beta.
Pretty paltry. But you could potentially argue, well, you have to pre-order the game to access the closed beta, and so numbers
Who the
would
fuck
be
is
low,
going to
but
pre-order the
even
game?
then, despite this being closed beta, the numbers were so abysmal that you have to wonder how many people actually pre-order this game.
See, exactly.
But the real test lies in what is now the open beta. The numbers that we're seeing right here represented are those of the open beta. Keep in mind that Concord is going to be $40 when it launches. And so if the free trial, if you will, of this game can't draw in an audience, can you imagine this game doing any sort of major moves and making, pushing a lot of units and being a financial success when it launches?
A lot of people are holding on to their money right now and playing more free games than they are playing games they have to pay for. And this is because people are tired of paying for dog shit games. So if it's a free game, you're going to have a ton of microtransaction and live service, but it better be a good free game. If you have to pay for it and they don't give you an open beta, honestly, this open beta and the way it's going, I can't imagine anybody paying $40 for it. You do an open beta, you better be damn sure that your game is fucking amazing so that people want to buy it when it comes out.
So the numbers in the open beta look as follows. It peaked at a mere 2,388 players.
That's awful.
And we are seeing the beta still run, and in that time, the 24-hour peak sits in the average of roughly like 1,500, 1,600 players. This is a minuscule number of players for a game that is this major AAA live service that Sony is pushing significantly that is free to access right now. You know, I've seen other betas or early access periods where the game is free. And hell, I've seen even some early access periods where they charge money for it, where the numbers have been significantly higher than this, indicating that there is some semblance of excitement, that there is some semblance of hype for the title.
There's no hype for
but
this game.
In the case of Concord, I don't know if it's just a case of people not knowing that this game exists or them knowing that it exists but being so uninterested by it that they decided to skip it. But these numbers are indicative of a game that I think will kind of be dead on arrival. And keep in mind that
Agreed.
Concord is going to have to compete with the likes of Overwatch 2,
Yeah.
which despite all the, criticism surrounding it, it's
Thing is, Overwatch 2 or Overwatch was one of the first games like that of its kind, and it was a live service, and it's a live service game simultaneously. We didn't have to pay for Overwatch 2 for that update or, whatever they wanted to do there, even though they made major changes to the game. But one thing that's really important is being first. Sometimes you have to be first, and then everybody will follow. And then now, games that are coming out like that, everybody's going to see that as a ripoff of your game and not want to play it.
still gets tons of players. We still get 24-hour peaks in the 50-some thousand players. And this is just Steam, by the way. We probably are seeing much greater numbers if we combine Steam numbers with the Battle.net numbers. Destiny 2 is still seeing, 80,000 players every day, 70, 80,000.
Again, being
there.
one of the
Somebody
first
even highlighted
to the
rather
game.
sad fact that Valve's unannounced game Deadlock has more players than Concord. I've never even heard about Deadlock until I looked into this news. And yeah, looking at the numbers here, it has a higher all-time
It's also because Valve puts out good games.
Freaking Concord, which is a game that is a couple weeks away. It comes out later in August, and the numbers here.
Valve
for
literally
open
just puts
beta,
out hits.
This is a really bad sign, ladies and gentlemen. Like, no live service can sustain itself with these kinds of numbers, and if the free access period
Live service
is getting such low
game
numbers,
you have to pay for.
I don't know if the final release will see numbers that will be able to sustain Concord and not have it suffer the same fate as the likes of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League or, Marvel's Avengers, you name it. And keep in mind that even if Concord gets 10 times the players at launch, it's still going to be in a dangerous all-time peak range where it might peter out and die off. Like, even if we multiply this all-time peak by 10, it's not as high as Marvel's Avengers all-time peak of 31,165 players. And Marvel's
166
Avengers is a
people
game that
playing.
eventually petered out and died off. So if Concord can't even break past
And we have the Marvel's Rivals coming out Tuesday, so tomorrow. I wonder how that game is gonna do on the beta. It looks pretty good, but again, I don't think it's sustainable. I think it's gonna be fun for like a few weeks, a month maybe, and then it's gonna peter off. A lot of these games just don't have a sustainability.
Marvel's Avengers numbers, even if if it gets 10 times the players at launch, which again costs $40 compared to this free-to-access open beta, then I don't know that Concord can survive in the long term. I'm even wondering if it can reach the all-time peaks of Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which peaked at a rather abysmal 13,459 players.
309 people playing right
kind
now.
Of average player base was not particularly.
They don't have a reason. It's crazy because they make it a live service game, and then they don't have enough players to make it make sense to continue to update the game and make it better.
Particularly high throughout its lifespan, which is just not great numbers for a high-budget AAA game. I don't know that Concord is quite as high budget as Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, but it is a game that the folks at Sony and PlayStation and the studio that's working on it will have to maintain consistently. It is going to be an investment that doesn't feel like it's going to pay itself.
It's not
back.
going to pay up. It's not going to pay off.
The issue lies in the fact that Concord is just kind of generic. It's not that it's all bad. Again, like it's not an awful game, and there are some good attributes to it. I think visually, in terms of fidelity, there's
the competitions for people's attention on games is probably the highest it's ever been. If you're making a AAA game like Elden Ring, or whether you're making a live service game, the competition is so high right now. And honestly, a lot of these independent games, like Chained Together, I mean, that's going to see a peak and then it's going to teeter off, but Chained Together, cool concept. Only Up, cool concept. Lethal Company, awesome. A lot of these indie games are outdoing these games made by Sony. Like, I don't think these developers or whoever's in charge really gets the purpose of video games. They're using it as a cash grab, but people are now becoming more aware, and they're like, fuck your game. I'm not playing your game.
Graphics and some of the art style elements going on here.
I'll just go play Overwatch for free. Why do I need to pay $40 for this?
You do have some unique play styles and powers, and the gameplay is solid, and it's not a game that feels bad to play or anything. You can have some fun with it. It's just they're games of this genre out there that are more established, that are better, that have a better player base, that are more fleshed out, that have been at it for longer and are more feature complete. Concord, especially for its $40 asking price, just doesn't feel like it's doing enough to stand out from the pack or for it to justify its $40 price point when Overwatch 2 is free to play.
Free to play Overwatch, like
that premium price point of $40, it really has to go above
it's a
and
fucking
beyond
cash
to be able to
grab.
compete with all the free to play stuff that's
It's a
out
cash
there.
grab because they
And
know that their game is going to die, and they just want to collect something from the consumers because they're not confident in their game. That's what I think it is.
I think that's a big mistake for them to not go free to play with this, to charge $40.
They're scared.
What they have on offer is kind of what's being presented right now, which is not a whole lot compared to what other games of this genre are doing. Now, we don't know what the PlayStation numbers look like. This game is coming out on both PC and PlayStation, and by some miracle,
it is coming out PC, PlayStation. Okay, I'm bugging.
Of this game on PlayStation is significantly higher, but what I usually discover is that if a game is performing well on one platform, it'll perform well on the other platform as well. If people want to play a certain game, they will play it across
consoles
both platforms.
The death of
consoles.
consoles.
Both audiences who will tune in and engage with the game. If you ask me, the fact that Concord is seeing such abysmal numbers during its open beta indicates to me that even on PlayStation, it's maybe has higher numbers, but probably not by a whole lot, not enough to make a difference in terms of its future prospects as a long-term, as a viable live service that can attract enough players and have them spend enough money for this to be a worthwhile
If you can't get people to spend $40 on your game, then the people who are spending $40 probably won't buy anything else within the game if your game is dog shit. That's it.
I would
it's
not
so
be
simple.
Shocked if Concord was dead on arrival. I would not be shocked if its initial player numbers indicated a live service that Sony and PlayStation will not want to support for more than a year, maybe 2 tops if it gets lucky. But who knows? We have seen plenty of comebacks and plot twists happen in the past.
There's
And,
not going to be a plot
like
twist
some
here.
miracle, they can make that happen.
The game
with
is
this
not
game. Great.
different in any
But,
way.
you know, as I said before, the oversaturation of this market is becoming harder and harder to deal with. The more you go in making a live service game with the mindset of like cashing in on a certain genre,
See, cashing
and a
in,
certain
cash
trend,
grab. That's what
the
this
less
is.
likely it is that you'll
People know they're not
succeed. Like,
stupid.
only a few of those kind of break through. There are only so many gamers in the world. They only have so much time and money.
I was literally
We keep
just saying
shoving
this.
in live services into the market and hoping that all of them will garner the kind of audience that Destiny, Fortnite, Apex Legends, whatever Overwatch does. That's just not a viable strategy. The expectation of infinite growth is absolutely ridiculous and short-sighted. And the fact that even with this trend of so many live services dying off and being a huge waste of time and resources, despite all that, seeing Sony confirm, you know, initially planning 12 live services.
They have to re-strategize. They're seeing that this shit is not working. Gamers are waking up, and honestly, they rather play games that are good, that they already know how to play. They don't want to invest time into a shitty game and get good at a shitty game either. So people are sticking to CS, Overwatch, Fortnite, League of Legends. Like, those are the top games right now. There's a few others that I didn't mention, but like everybody's playing these games that they've been playing forever. So as a company, you have to think of, how do we get better than those games? Now, how do we just make a live service that can kind of hang out under it or around it? These people don't want to make games. They want to make money. It's fucking sucks.
By the end of March 2026, and saying that we'll just cut that down to 6 still being a lot. The fact that they're planning 6 live services from one company within the span of 2 years, like, good luck on the money you're about to throw away. Maybe one of those will pop off, and maybe that's what they're riding on, because if one of them pops off at the level that, you know, something like Fortnite does, then
nothing's going to pop off like Fortnite does,
thousandfold.
unfortunately.
So maybe that's what they're
that
betting on,
concept, that game, it will go down as one of the greatest games of all time because of what it did for gaming in general. And it's just a good game. I don't play it that much anymore. I played it a lot when it first came out, but you can't deny that that's one of the best games of all time. It's up there. I'm not saying it's the best, but it's definitely up there. You have to give credit where credit's due, what it did for gaming.
Eventually, they'll hit the bullseye after investing too much money on too many live services. Maybe one of them will become the next Fortnite, the next Destiny, whatever, and pay dividends and make them a ton of money over the long term. But, you know, that's
and
a risky
streaming,
proposition,
gaming and streaming.
and there's going to be a lot of wasted potential and a lot of likely layoffs as the devs get blamed for the failures of leadership and their mandates for the kinds of games that they want to ship, instead of letting the developers cook what they should be cooking. But I suppose only time will tell how Concord
It takes
will
a
play out.
long
At the end
time
of the
to
day, we
cook,
don't
and they
know
want to
for
make 6
sure.
games in
My
2 years.
prediction is, though, that Concord will not last very long
No
at
shot.
all. Like, I've seen this
I don't
trend
think it's gonna
before. I've
last at
covered
all.
enough live services to know that unless there's a major miracle or crazy comeback that happens, which is the exception, not the rule, Concord, I think, is just, it's doomed to repeat history. Or at the very least, that's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on Concord. Have you played the game and the beta? What do you think of it? And do you think it has the potential for long-term viability? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah.
Guys, so
I'll see you guys next time.
that was a good video.
Young out.
Mm-hmm.